All right, requested by you guys, continuing with the calf slicer defenses, talking about the calf slicer from the back or the bear trap. This is, I think, without a doubt, at least at this time of this video, is the strongest calf slicer that exists. It is very powerful. It is, man, I would say it's basically impossible to escape once it fully gets locked in. And because of the angle that it creates with our hips, it really puts us in a very bad position that this is definitely one that I'm gonna have to tap to every time if somebody can get me there. The difference with a lot of calf slicers is that our body is able to be more forward relative to our hips, and so the pressure doesn't get put on in the same way. Here, if we look at the bear trap quickly, so it's say typically from like a single leg X, and as I turn my leg out to defend, Kevin puts that shin in behind my knee, has his leg locked on the outside, grabs my hips. From here, I'm in danger, but it's not gonna happen. But he pulls me backwards and starts to basically get me more in line with his spine like this. And now as he squeezes and pulls my hips in and pulls his knees downwards, puts a lot of pressure in. And obviously that was a much looser version of that calf slicer because I can't even go into it fully. The difference with it from like my body's perspective is that a lot of calf slicers are being done like this, like from a truck position, where my spine is relative like in a perpendicular angle to my thighs. And so here, I'm not very flexible at the knees, but I can sit on my heels still, and it's kind of tight in my knees, but it's not the end of the world. So just showing that from like a position, if he's got me in the truck right now, you can see how my thighs are perpendicular to my spine. And so as he's applying this calf slicer, I can absorb a lot more force, and eventually it's gonna hit. But I have more time to defend, and I have more options to defend. The bear trap takes me from this into like a reclined hero pose in yoga, where now I have to be able to drop my head all the way back this way, while also having a wedge in between the back of my knee here. That's putting that splitting pressure on. If you are not that flexible, which a lot of people are not, now it becomes a big risk. The most important thing that we have to do from here is realize that our center of gravity can't be back over top of our feet or we'll fall back. As we're in this position and I turn myself out, I'm trying to run from this position anyway, whether it's heel hooks, knee bar threats. I want to get this knee out. I should be leaning my body weight this direction. So as I turn myself this direction, as I feel this leg go behind here, I know that calf slicer is a threat. I keep my knee out. Otherwise, I could get knee barred from here, but my knee's out and my hips are out here. If Kevin tries to pull me into a calf slicer right now, reach at my hips, yeah. It's not there. He's gonna have to capture it. But if I sit myself back like this and he reaches around my hips and locks his legs together, there's not as many options right now. So here, it's extremely easy to stop if I just make sure I'm here, which I should anyway, because I'm looking at accessing his legs as levers, backing the hell away. If he does start to come up and touch your hips at all, especially in the gi, where he doesn't have to get around your hips, but he can grab the belt, I want to make sure that my leg becomes very strong. We need to be obviously concerned about other leg locks, but if he manages to get any control of my hips, I can extend my leg out, still being very careful of that knee line. I want to be very careful of that knee bar because if it's a gi, if it's in the gi, the knee bar is the only thing that he's allowed to threaten with. Toe hold would still be a concern here if my knee's in. And obviously heel hooks if it's no gi. So I turn my leg in. I'm going to really keep some pressure here. I'll extend as much as I need to. If he reaches and grabs my hips, I keep that force extending to drive my hips away. Very hard for him to overpower that. Depending on how much I can extend my leg, if he's grabbing my hips, my hands just have to come in every time. As he's grabbing around, even if he locks his hips around right now, around my hips with his arms, my only option here before I'm about to go down, I have to try and keep my weight forward. My hands have to come immediately to the grip, and I have to break it. If I cannot break the grip around my hips, I'm never going to escape this, because that's why it's called like a bear trap, is that this leg gets so stuck because my ankle is wedged in against his hip here, and he's now got his wedge in between here. Yeah, even if we're at this angle, this leg is cooked. I can't get it out. So as he's got this grip, slightly different variation, but can still be very powerful from here. If I break that grip, finish the calf slicer, Kevin, he doesn't have control of my hip. I'm gonna be able to start turning myself out of it. When it comes to rotation, we just wanna be careful. he's gonna have a grip like this, so without him controlling my hips right now, if he locks in pretty, just stomp on your foot right now just so that they can see, he would have it triangled. But because there's this wedge still here on the outside of my knee, be careful trying to turn this way. If he puts a lot of pressure and you can see that my knee can't lift, I'm essentially putting myself into a reap where my hip becomes externally rotated. And if I try and turn like this, that's how I hurt myself. Sometimes, if say that ankle's up in the air and we're here, I can feel that I can drop my hip down and turn myself. That would be safe. I never try and open my knee up against the force that he's generating, because that's what puts a lot of pressure on my knee. But if there's space to do so and I can move my hip through and adjust, I can do so safely without putting unsafe force into my leg. Otherwise, this way, once he's putting that pressure down, he's curling my leg down, rotating that way is safe. And once again, probably a way I want to rotate anyway, because if there's just that heel hook threat, if he starts catching my heel in any way, this would relieve the pressure. So you're just doing the same thing as you would for a whole bunch of different leg locks. And that's what's good about it, is that this is just something that's going to cover your bases for anything. So here, as I start to access this leg, he goes here. I try and keep my knee up. I keep myself far away. I keep my hand on his ankle right now so I can push and extract that knee. And then because of that force, I can adjust and get my knee out here safely and be able to possibly look at reattacking. Or he keeps that pressure in and he breaks my knee down. And I'm like, crap, this sucks. He's grabbing my hips. I push the hip away, or the hand off of my hip. He's got one side of my hip, but now I can drop to my hip here and rotate safely the direction I talked about, and just make sure that he can't, like, say, pull my knee back in. This becomes the leg lock battle. People are gonna have very strong follow-ups, and that's what I like about this calf slicer, is that it's mechanically strong, but it's also got some tactical plausibility where the rate of getting that calf slicer still doesn't really exist at the higher level, but it's something that we have seen a few times at black belt. But by me defending it, I set myself up for other leg lock attempts and also coming up and attacking the back. And so you're not losing anything by going for this calf slicer if you're able to actually start threatening it very effectively. So one more time, as I start to turn and push the legs off, he starts to bring it down behind my hip. I try and control that leg. I try and bring my knee out as much as I can. I lean away from him so he can't pull me. As he reaches up to control my hips, I have to start focusing on the hands, breaking a grip off, dropping to a hip, rotating my leg out. Try to not ever stand right over top of him, because then that's what's going to allow your center of gravity to get controlled and for you to fall over. And if they start trying to control your hips, you have to get rid of that control.